Dear friends, I'm glad to see you all on Feygin Live. It is Friday, July 8th, almost weekend. I'm glad to have you all here. It is 3 minutes past 10 Kiev time. Sorry because of my previous stream. Day 135 with Olexiy Arestovych. Glad to see Olexiy. Good evening. We have 126,000 watching us already and 21,000 already left their likes. We will not disappoint you. Please leave links to this stream in your media. And please subscribe to Feygin Live, Olexiy Arestovych, and Privateer Station if you are watching that in English. Alright, let's start. Olexiy, Friday. Any maybe hopeful news today? Actually, we have some good news today, of course. Yes, please, I'm writing down. Near Bogorodichne, that's a direction from Izum towards Slavyansk. They tried to advance. We destroyed about 12 tanks. Totally, yesterday I saw reports of 35, but I'm still trying to confirm the full number. 12 confirmed for sure. So we repelled the attack. They lost over 200 troops. There was a pretty serious operation, right? Continuation of the operation. Yes, it was. They tried to push and see the potential for that motion, and we showed them their potential. So, yeah, those organs of motion were pretty much torn off. They still keep running into the deficit of equipment and ammo. Just over the last 24 hours, Donetsk, Popasna, Shakhtersk, New Kakhovka. In each of them, we destroyed several warehouses. Near Shakhtersk, they actually had to evacuate some of the civilians because the ammo depot was blowing up, amazingly fiery. And HIMARS is a good tool. So HIMARS is the tool that you're using to destroy the depth of their support? Yes, exactly. Not only HIMARS, but HIMARS primarily. And by the way, today United States gave us another package with more equipment, with another 4 units of that magnificent machine. I just had a stream with another person, and we're trying to correlate the current numbers provided by United States with Lend-Lease program, because frankly I don't think it even matters to correlate it much, as long as they're supplying and continuing to support. So it is curious, though, if HIMARS are good ones and are enough for you to turn the situation noticeably. It's not just HIMARS, it's also new American radars that also register really well the location of enemy artillery whenever they launch. And then our units can target them and destroy them almost immediately. The good part is that, yes, HIMARS can reach the warehouse that is capable of supplying several battalions size worth. So this definitely breaks their logistical chains that they felt were invincible for a while. And the most important result of that is that they started to push the warehouses further away from the front. And this is a very important nuance. Russians, for the most part, are using vehicles, trucks, to supply the advancement. With 3 trips per vehicle per day, they can support the offensive. 2 trips makes any advancement questionable. 1 trip is barely enough to hold the line and don't retreat. So 120 kilometers, that's roughly 1 trip. 90 is 2 trips. 60 is 3 trips. So HIMARS easily reach over 60, and they have to push them further out towards 90. That basically means only 2 trips per day, And then that makes everything much more difficult. We're not talking about 45,000 shells per day as they did recently. And imagine if they advanced for 10 or 20 kilometers during the last 3 months. They were relying on their artillery to being able to shoot 45,000 shells a day. Whenever it drops down to 25 or 15,000 because of lack of ammo and poor supply, what will happen with this advancement? Now we're talking seriously, and they started commenting that in Russia, saying, well, we do probably need an operative pause. Putin said we'll take a pause and fortify the positions that we took. Lysychansk and Severodonetsk, but does it mean exactly that right now they are deciding how to interact with that? Because if the warehouse is 100 miles away from the front, that's basically one resupply trip per day. And if Ukraine will continue the destruction of warehouses and destruction of ammo depots, would it mean that their preparation for this offensive will take much longer? Whatever they think they are, Mark, I don't think, can find a way to solve it. One of the solutions they can come up is maybe to try to hunt down the HIMARS. Is it real? Well, with artillery duels and stuff, they can try, and maybe even send some special forces to hunt it down. But that would mean sending them deep in the Ukrainian territory, and that's why we're not really afraid. Although this is war, there is a chance, but I don't quite believe in that. And even if they manage to catch one, the rest will continue working. They don't really have a choice, speaking globally. They will have to continue going because of the Kremlin's orders, but it is pretty hard for them from now on. So their pause is due to a couple of reasons now. First, objectively, that's an important pause. They need to rebuild the logistics control systems, regroup a little, sense and probe our defense line, see if there is a good place to advance somewhere. But we indeed broke their ability to advance, especially in the most critical part where they were trying to plan the next offensive. So, yeah, the second reason basically is us being successful in working on their supply lines. One needs to mention that as we get more HIMARS, as we get M270 systems, we'll start changing situation. That first will be manifested tactically, but then it'll likely jump to the next level. I was listening to one of the generals commenting the warfare today, and one of them, he actually said that since you have Harpoon missiles, perhaps it's time to hit the bridge. You told us previously that Harpoons are not good enough to destroy the support of the bridge. I don't exactly know the number of the missiles and what effectiveness would look like if we train them on the Crimea bridge. But I do respect this general's comment and desire to shoot at that bridge. Every honest person in Ukraine probably would love to hit that bridge. And I just want to figure out if it's real. Yeah, it is probably real. We can bring that equipment to Zaporozhye region and shoot the bridge. But how many of that kind of missiles we have? What would be the damage to the bridge? Perhaps it's better to save them for other targets in the sea. So there is no clear answer to that. And HIMARS cannot quite reach that far. If we get the 300-kilometer version of it, perhaps. But whatever we have now, that's basically limited to a 70-kilometer range. And Americans do not want to supply you that top-tier missile? Not yet. But as this war unfolds, nobody can predict what's going to happen. Now imagine I'm the commander of the Russian brigade, I'm planning how to advance, and I'm making decisions who goes where, and then I get a notice that, oh, your tactical supply lines got destroyed, so your support units can shoot only twice, or basically a half of what they used to shoot, and they still need to advance. Now imagine you get next message that, sorry man, you won't have communication for a day because damn Ukrainians destroyed the comm point. So for the next 24 hours you have to stick without any comm. And of course you can fortify and hang on for a day, 2, 3, or 4. But you know what happens? All of a sudden you lose your tank support. They're all gone and you cannot even call for any help. And now imagine one step worse, if all of a sudden you lose the command post. That you're sitting there planning the activity and then the hit goes right on your head and you're gone. So detachment stays rather incapacitated until the new commander takes post. And everything goes to us acquiring that capacity. Step by step on soft pause, we're creeping on them and getting a bit closer and closer. In order for us to shoot and target with HIMARS individual objects and tanks, we'll need probably half of American army size, but we can already target pretty big targets with these things, like command posts and warehouses. We definitely are getting better at it, and they start to feel it. They start to feel that fear that we are capable of reaching them. We only had 8 or 9, I think, and now Americans announced they're giving us another 4, and then there'll be some from Britain, some from Germany. Whenever it all gets together, that already draws a picture of something close to 20. Is 20 a severe number? A serious number? It is a very serious number. As I remember said initially, if we had 40 or 60, that'll be a different war. And for comparison, I would say Britain has 40. If we had 30, the Russian side would definitely feel it. All these things in the last week, they were done by the 4 that we've been using actively. So imagine it's 30. All right, we are at about 13 minutes. Please leave your likes, share that stream. Next message I'm reading. Swedish media reports that a group of Russian warfighters sold 152 millimeter self-propelled howitzers to Ukraine at 150,000 per unit. Well, the real price of each unit is roughly $7 million. And the sources of that media are telling that 2 of such pieces of equipment were sold to Ukraine through one officer, Dagestan-based or with Dagestan roots. That sale occurred from the night of Tuesday to Wednesday. And, if not for the Swedish edition, Swedish media, I would smile and say, oh, that's probably nothing major. But this is Swedish media, a pretty serious one. Is it true? Do Russians sell stuff to Ukrainian army? I do not have exact knowledge of that sale, so I cannot support or deny. Do you think anything like that can happen? Well, I am skeptical because it is a bit unreal to sell equipment during the military engagements, because just trying to get it closer will paint a target on you. Well, they did say they might have sold it through a third party or through another territory. Well, possibly, maybe, but it's difficult to verify. So, do you guys have any kind of that equipment on the Ukrainian side? I don't know, Mark. I'll have to verify if we have that exact system. But, Alexei, if all of a sudden you find that you do have a couple of them, then perhaps the Swedish media is correct. And you indeed bought something through the Dagestan officer, through a third party, and could have been that. Now, imagine, remember Lavrov said that you guys were selling equipment, and some people in Russia believed that. Now the other media comes out and says a different story, a 180-degree different story. So, I'm trying to figure it out. Mark, give me 5 minutes. We'll probably get some comments and notes from our viewers, and I may get something through my channels. Well, yes, okay. But imagine that, if it's true and maybe somebody's already being tortured, maybe they captured that Dagestani soldier officer back in Russia and already are looking for other channels of leaking materials and information. Well, in this case, Mark, we can say we already bought 40 of those, let them continue torturing and terrorizing their own. But in general, do you guys sell stuff? Do you guys pay money? And I remember you mentioned that you were eager to give money. Yeah, I remember that. And I actually know of one known case when one soldier hijacked the tank and delivered it to Ukraine. He surrendered the tank and basically got money. It's $10,000, right? Yes, we did. So, yeah, he's good. He must be rich, or he took it to some casino, Yeah, I don't know how he spent it, Mark, but yes, we did pay. So our specialists here are noticing that we don't know if we paid for that, but we could have just stolen it on the front. If Russian side left it or we captured it, but we could easily acquire this equipment. So my friends are asking questions here. If the process of buying and stealing is exactly the same. In this case, probably yes, because somebody might have stolen it. It could have been the officer, it could have been some private party. Well, my channels are supposing that we could have stolen it, that we could have found a way to capture it and steal it from the front, and then perhaps somebody made a legend that we actually bought it as a cover story. So, interesting. And this is the newest piece of equipment, yeah. 2 guns in it. It's pretty interesting. So it makes sense that we would have tried to acquire that. And it is a new equipment. I think they wanted to initially place that in Crimea, but I don't know if it got to the front. That's how we could have acquired it. All right, so you do have it. Interesting. And I think there are people watching us who might consider running and doing that sale again, or that delivery, special delivery again. Oh, in this case, Mark, of course, guys, please bring the equipment, anything you can get your hands on from the Russian side, and we're waiting you with warm dinner, lunch, or whatever time of the day it is, and thousands of dollars. Yes, please. Okay. Another topic. I don't know if you're following it. Details of the story from Britain, because today the representative of Kiev already reacted after a conversation with Boris Johnson that there is indeed a perspective that Liz Truss may win within the party, or a Minister of Defense, and either of them is a good candidate. One of them actually said about the well-known shorty syndrome, talking about Putin, that became a meme. So either of them could be a good candidate, right, for the Ukraine political situation. Indeed, Mark. And frankly, I did, Olexiy, sorry to interrupt. I did check, I did look in depth why and what is happening with Boris, and people are saying that it is more internal politics than external politics, than foreign politics, that caused his demise. That indeed there is inflation, that some of his appointments were questionable, and these decisions are probably based on trying to affect the internal political situation in the country and economic situation within the country. How do you think these decisions may actually affect the situation with the war in Ukraine? Well, Mark, I think this is just the media that's trying to affect the process. Because in reality, we have the biggest continental warfare since 1945, and any columnist in the newspaper would be looking to somehow exploit the subject. And some of them do lose the feeling of reality. And when NATO and G7 are taking huge decisions, huge steps to support Ukraine, and then some author in some media comes out and says, well, everything could lead to Ukraine's demise, and this is a super serious situation that will definitely change the situation on the front and who's in power. That reminds of, the joke we talked about earlier in one of the earlier shows when the corporal would be directing, or one of the lower ranks would come to the high command and try to tell them how to fight, how to lead the war, how to wage war. And it's difficult tasks. G7 is trying to win civilizational fight, big disposition on the global front, while the columnist in the newspaper just wants people to read his edition. So very likely he would continue, or she would continue, publishing details in a certain light that are provocative enough and might cause people to pick that paper. So, in any case, if it's Truss or if it's that Minister of Defense, it likely will be even worse for Russia. I also agree with you that it likely will be worse. Either of those candidates would mean a more difficult situation for Russia. And it's been bane of Russia, this warfare, that they initially talked about Zelensky being an actor, that he's not capable of mounting any serious resistance to their offensive. So, another news, Lavrov was traveling with Maria Zakharova, his assistant, and he was complaining that nobody is taking pictures, nobody is inviting them out anywhere during their business trip. Somebody even left the meeting when he got there. So it did start to look like they are being isolated. He did manage to meet Chinese colleagues, but that's about it. And Iran, of course, another country that met them. But nobody else is eager to meet with their delegation. So, in your opinion, what would be the conclusion out of this? That the preparation for G20, do you think Moscow will still decide to participate? Putin will decide to come in person, or he would rather stick with the Zoom version? Because he's being a coward and afraid that there may be an assassination attempt. What do you think Russia's perspective in that? Because there are some media in Russia saying that maybe they can find allies. And Lavrov was complaining that he's being called an aggressor, an occupant. People are screaming at him that he needs to leave Ukraine. So he was upset at that. And, you need to look at it from a different light. If Lavrov potentially can stand near a German colleague who would look at him and say, I don't want to take a picture with the murderer of babies, but I don't think Putin will go and enjoy the similar process. Plus, he's also afraid for his safety. 18-hour flight, many things may happen. So he probably is more afraid of his own people than the foreigners. So it's a difficult question for him. And the fact that somebody told him that the plane is ready and it's safe doesn't mean so. I actually have been in Indonesia and on Bali. It's a difficult trip. Even with the intermediate landing in Malaysia somewhere, it's still a difficult trip. So he did run a little test. He sent Russian mission in the face of Lavrov in that direction, and he saw that nobody wants to deal with Russia. Of course, yeah, we understand China still makes a neutral face, and Iran is happy to see Russia, but everybody else is stepping away. They do not want to interact with this country. So it's a painful experience to participate in. Probably too painful for Putin to even try. He probably will stick to the previous statements that he used earlier, that we are open to be friends to the world, we only have enemies in NATO, but I will still manage my kingdom from the bunker. I will have success and glory and good things. And frankly, Olexiy, today's murder of Shinzo Abe, who was murdered by a usual Marine who is resigned, and Shinzo was a rather delicate politically figure. He did not push that hard as Putin did, of course. And, you know, Olof Palme was also assassinated back in the day. Nobody could understand why was he murdered. And, you know, strange story. And I think when Putin sees things like that, he feels cold wind on his back. Because he definitely feels it on himself. And I seriously doubt he will even consider going anywhere. And I think it does have relation to our earlier discussions about possible paths for Russian Federation. It generally leads to encapsulation and to staying with closed borders, not really looking out. Because West has democracy. Democracy is a turnover of politicians in the nature. And any politician can say, wait, dear electors, I understand that, of course, the prices are high, that things changed, but me personally, I always was against Putin and all of his politics. But that guy you're supporting right now, here's a picture. He's shaking hand of Putin. He's walking on bloody puddles to get to his new position, new appointment. And that is a serious argument that all politicians in the Western world and many of the Eastern world got an argument that in response to any politician who is trying to make friends with Putin, his opponent will point finger and say, look, that's what's happening, that's what that person is doing. And all they need to say is raise a hand and say, well, excuse me, I need to clarify that this person did so and so. So none of them, I suspect, it's basically a risk factor. Most of them would try to stay away from Putin now. All right, I understand you. I understand. Let's go to the next topic. People are saying that they're asking these questions much, but we kind of avoiding them. I need to dispel that request because we do try to answer questions every time. Can I ask you, Mark, can you bring one of those questions that we are supposedly avoiding? Well, okay, one of them is shelling of Kharkiv, that anti-air defense cannot protect it. Mark. The hits of Kharkov are being done by means that anti-air defense is not fighting against, either not capable or it is not even designed to. And yes, I understand why they keep saying we're avoiding that question, because we answered it many times and it doesn't make sense. There's no technical capability to defend from these hits. Do you think it would be better for people to just, if civilians left the city? Okay, personally, I don't have the right to give advice of that scale, because literally every citizen needs to understand how to do that and what to do in this situation, or Kharkiv government needs to declare certain things. And between us and our show already said that if you have elderly children, any people who cannot hide in the shelter, you should have left the city. But that's just my opinion. And we did talk about limits to mobilization, that some people consider that Ukraine is now blanketly going to mobilize everybody. Actually, it's different, Mark. I want to say that if anything, we do have a special list that are growing now, that with people and occupations and situations when we cannot draft a person. So that situation is changing to the better. And I'm also supportive of not enforcing it and not stopping people from leaving their cities or moving, staying mobile within the country. It is important, and we should not be crippling them economically and physically in this regard. So right now we're actually increasing the groups, especially of fathers with different numbers of children. And by different means, I think we'll get to the situation that in order to maintain economic connections, we will give more capabilities for our citizens to move, leave the country, make other economic decisions. That question is also attached to the question about the seamen. Yes, sailors, seamen, all kinds of people working with ocean vessels. They are definitely part of that new law. That there are those groups that are getting some preferences. So we are working. It is approaching some reasonable conclusion soon. So. All right, another one. That question actually is just from me, not from the list. I understand starting next year in Ukraine, there'll be a free turnover of different kinds of weapons in Ukraine. So executive powers will make a decision that you will be able to buy guns in Ukraine. Yeah, you technically can buy any kind of gun in Ukraine, but it's somewhat limited, right? So one of the limitations that we had was short gun and concealed carry. So we're expanding this capability now, and Ukraine is an interesting country where people can buy a sniper's weapon, a very rare kind of sniper's weapon that's not even owned by most of the military in France. For example, it could be a French sniper rifle, and call it a hunting weapon and have that. So I can say that we have hundreds of thousands of Kalashnikovs given to people since the beginning of conflict. Nobody is killing anybody with that, even though people were threatening us and warning us that it'll lead to a disaster. Yeah, it also matters, because when you live next door to an enemy who is threatening to destroy you, there is no way to not trust your citizens, right? You need to arm your country. I don't see any other exit, any other option for us, Mark. Moscow is really afraid of that. And yes, I think we'll follow Israeli steps where each house would have enough weapons. Imagine the not so possible, not kind of an unthinkable version for now option. If that war starts, 5 years later, Russia gets another group of troops and weapons and tries to achieve new goals in Ukraine. We'll have the strongest partisans, and every little village will become a source of resistance for Russia. So it'll be a nightmare for them to even invade anything. And we're trying to build that into our safety system, into our defense system of the country. Because we do, first of all, trust our people. It did show the effectiveness. We do not have much other options, and it's a huge kind of deterrent for the offender. An armed population is definitely a force. I actually want to say that Switzerland is people armed to their teeth, probably most armed country in Europe. Families have so many things stored in their houses. I actually was once in a meeting in Switzerland, and there was like military exercise or something called. And everybody in this meeting, respectable businessmen, politicians, in 40 minutes, they were already dressed in uniform with machine guns, getting to their collection points. So, similar to Israel, I guess. Exactly. It's almost like, having a tank in your little outhouse. Yeah, similar. They got some families have anti-tank weapons, and others have other somewhat heavy equipment. It's the culture. It's the family and country culture. But, Cossack, Mark. What is Cossack? It's the armed, free person, and that's what Cossacks were in Ukraine. They would still be farmers. They could still, farm land, grow crops, but wear the rifle on their back. And that's the Ukrainian paradigm: a man and a woman who is free and well armed. Actually, we do have about 40,000 girls in the army as well. Also in very high specialty positions, like fleet officers, naval officers, even some pilots, snipers, intel specialists. Not even talking about, so to say, traditional positions that were more traditionally occupied by females. And that's part of a backbone of the army in Ukraine. So I'm definitely on the side of believing that the whole country, the whole populace should have their positions in resistance in defense system. I think we should have proper education. At least we should be training people how to gather intel, how to give coordinates, how to provide better targeting for the troops. And many people are already doing it now during this war. So if the population is aware how to do that, how to deliver that information to the troops, it makes a much difficult target for any offender. All right, we have over 60,000 people who left their likes. We have over 300,000 people watching us live. We found the girl that we showed you yesterday, of course, thanks to our viewers. We talked to her mom, and we sent our little gift of 2,000 euro to Alexandra and her mother Maria. Their father works as a policeman in Odessa. So we closed that ask. We opened a shop. One is European, one is for American group, American buyers. There are two different links. It's in the description of the show, so depending upon where you live, you can use one or the other. Mark, there are some evil tongues from Financial Times are saying that United States are considering delivery of missiles to HIMARS with a 300 kilometers radius. Well, FT is a serious media, right? Yeah, FT is a serious media. Hello, bridge to Crimea. Right? Let's leave that for tomorrow. I'll read that article and we can discuss. I need to get my pleasure from eating it. And, you know, all Putin needed is to withdraw the troops. Well, yes, if he was smart, but he perhaps wants them to die. So, and I think it's important for him somehow. When he doesn't care if it's his own people or Ukrainians dying. He probably just enjoys death and doesn't matter which side is dying. He seems to be having, and his crew in Kremlin just enjoying that process. Yeah, I think he's kind of cannibalistic in this regard. He's basically drinking blood, figuratively speaking, but that's how he is getting his pleasures now. I think they're actually getting excited when and aroused when people are calling them murderers and killers. That's what excites them. I think there's psychological or metaphysical predisposition to that. There's definitely something about it. And, the moment when everybody starts laughing at him with tits out on a horse, he's upset now. He's probably getting excited that Johnson is forced out, but that's too early of a smile because any other candidate is probably even worse, like Wallace, who said that Putin has a shorty syndrome. So we'll see. New artists are working on the new images. We'll have to agree upon them and prepare them properly. But we're trying to add merch to the store. Actually, looking at the pictures, I had a question. How would a girl wear that shirt? They need to spread these pictures apart a little. So, I would be on one side and Olexiy would be on the other side. That'll make it look better. Mark, don't go that way. A little further and you'll start selling implants or other stuff. No, Olexiy, no, we're not doing that. We're being serious. We're printing good things in Germany and selling. There's no smile here. And we're not really getting it for any profit. This is all YouTube and YouTube related companies. We're just providing graphics for them and then they're supporting. Mark, important thing is that we're finding ways to help these kids. That's what matters for me. I agree, Olexiy. A lot of people, hundreds, are turning to us. And we can't really help everybody, or giving small amounts, like $100, it's not even serious. So we're trying to accumulate at least somewhat noticeable amount. 2,000 is not a big deal also, but at least something. And we're trying to pick the worst of these stories to try to help them. And maybe, add a little to the money needed for creation of the prosthetics. And I also, another fund that's helping them a lot is the fund founded by the wife of Ukraine president. They're also doing a ton of help to victims of war. So any effort counts. We're trying to do it in our mode. We just don't have enough power financially to support all these cases. And, just trying to find a way to do that. So if you guys can buy a shirt with our brand, so to say, with our imagery, please do that. Me and Olexiy share the opinion that that's probably a good way to help out those families in need. And, they're good shirts. All right, we'll meet tomorrow, 10 p.m., right? Sorry, Mark, tomorrow we can't. I have a short and very hot visit to one location. All right, sorry, Olexiy cannot make it tomorrow. There'll be more casts. We'll publish a replacement, and we'll wait till Olexiy comes back. All right, goodbye, everybody. See you till the next time.